The day has finally arrived. It is election day. What direction is it going to go? Let me know what you think in the live comments here on YouTube. Let me know, comment down below if you're watching on Twitter. We've got a great guest that is showing up today. About 15 minutes in, we're going to be talking about everything going on in this market because, golly, we are just primed for hopefully some incredible bullishness in this market. The question is it going to start and kick off today? Is it going to kick off in the very, very near future? Either way, I think it is going to happen. So we've got to discuss that. And we've got a lot of just wonderful things that are brewing in the background. So let's not get anything twisted. Let's not mess this up because the time is now. Again, we have a wonderful guest that's going to be popping in here in just a few minutes, but I got some charts we got to look at here at the beginning. Everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding the bell. Let's remember to stay civil today. Let's stay positive. Let's be a place of encouragement and empowerment. I'm going to be bringing you some incredible data that we got to look at today. But other than that, let me go ahead and get this retweeted out. And why don't you guys do this as well? If you're tuned in on Twitter, hit that retweet. If you're tuned in on YouTube, head over to my Twitter at Kelly Kellam or at Academy BitLab and retweet the space. Let people know that we are getting into it today. Let me go ahead and post this right now. Post. And with that, I think it's time to get some tunage playing so that we can vibe because pump is coming. So let's get into it. Let's go.
Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pump. I've been preparing for this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. SEC and its policies rely on whatever Gary thinks. Bitcoin's a flight to quality. I heard that from Larry Fink. Every hour losing purchasing power on foolish out there. It's not our fault. Blame the coal. It's the political cowards. When it comes to gas, our purchasing power just got cut in half. I sit back and laugh, open my bag, fill it with stacks and sats. Bitcoin, pumping, altcoins, pumping. I've been preparing for this. Can't tell me nothing.
And I believe crypto will play that type of role as a flight to quality. We are hearing from clients around the world.
Bitcoin, pump, altcoins, pumping. I've been preparing for this.
And I believe crypto will play that type of role as
Bitcoin, pump, altcoin, pump.
We are hearing from clients around the world.
Can't nobody tell me nothing.
Crypto, depending on how you think about it. And I believe crypto will play that type of role as a
Can't nobody tell me nothing. Bitcoin, pump.
We are hearing from clients around the world.
Prepared for this.
It's here. Are we ready? As Sack Nasty 86 says, who's ready for the nasty? Let's get it. It's time to dive into everything going on. Everybody, let's get involved. Let's stay active in the live chat, whether you're on Twitter or on YouTube. We got a great stream lined up today. We have a wonderful guest popping in for a bit of a discussion about what's next after this election. Let's go. It's here, election day. We've got to talk about it. How you doing, everybody? My name is Kelly Kellam. Welcome to the BitLab Academy daily stream. We've been bringing you incredible content, unbiased thoughts on the market, meaningful tools, resources, content, and of course, all of you, the most empowering and wonderful community in all of crypto. And as we start the day, we're getting some anticipated sort of bullishness to the upside. What is going to happen today? Is the election today and every little jump in the polls up and down, is this going to drive market volatility today? Or is the market going to start signaling to us that they know something that we don't? That's what we need to pay attention to, because I think a lot of people are going to get upset today on both directions, because I think we're going to be due for a little bit of clearing out of liquidity in both directions. So we want to make sure that we don't mess this up. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Let's start our day today with gratitude. Let's start it with appreciation. Let's remember, we are a community of people globally. If you don't agree with somebody, don't agree with them. It's okay. You can ask them why they think that, but you don't say, why do you think that? That's different than saying, I'm trying to inquire. That's being a jackass. let's not do that. Say, hey, man, what brought you to that conclusion? I think the political divide in this country is far too deep, and I think it's propagated by what happens in mainstream media as well as social media. We need to be more inviting to hear what other people think and realize not everything is as close or separated as you think. We just need to have positive discord. Now, my question to you all is, where do you think price is going to be at the end of this week? Everybody comment down below. If you're watching, if you're not watching live, comment down below under the video. If you're watching live in the live chat, where do you think price is going to be on Sunday this week? Do you think we're going to be above where we're at right now or below? Do you think Trump's going to win this? Do you think Kamala's going to win this? Do you think we'll even have a decision today? All these things I think will have impact on price over the next few days. And if we don't get a decision today, I think the market's going to be in a very whipsawy sort of, I don't want to say turmoil, but there's going to be a lot of uncertainty and excitement and then uncertainty. That will drive price in regards to where that goes. But as we look right now, Bitcoin is still pushing to the upside. And it's basically on this map that we've had drawn out for some time. And this is, I mean, just minded this perfectly. Up here, rejection. Down here, support. Lost it. Came down to that next level that we were talking about. Came back up to retest previous lows right here at this same level that we have marked out, which is it a random area? No, it's a previous high. This is exactly where we fell through and then came back up, retested, came back down. Now look, retested this again, tested all the way back down to this level. And then now we are back on the way up, the swing back up, and we have pushed back above this 69.5 that we've had mapped out. So what is going on here? What is the election going to do for the price? Does it matter if Trump is in office or Kamala is in office for how Bitcoin's going to respond over the next few months, especially potential market high? Is the market high going to be muted if it's one candidate versus the other? What are the alts going to do? Is that going to be separated from the narrative of Bitcoin after this if Kamala gets in versus Trump? Now, I'm not even talking politically, guys. I'm talking about as an investor, as a trader, as somebody that's actively involved in these markets. I'm asking myself, what is the forward projection of how markets may respond, react, or basically the price action movement will go based on one or the other. I'm looking at it from an investor's perspective, not like this person's better or this person. Let's cut all that nonsense out. There's going to be plenty of that on every YouTube out there today, on every news meet. No, we're talking about as an investor, what the hell am I supposed to do right now in this market with all of this choppiness? Now, shout out to Falco kicking the day off with 5 gifted BitLab memberships. I appreciate you. I love you. And welcome to all the new members. Sack Nasty got a membership. I'm surprised you weren't already a member. Mike Bennett, Mike Play, Maureen R, and K-Day Solana. Shout out to all the new members. Big love to all of you. But we got to talk about what's going on. I mean, look at this. We're pumping up 70,538. You got to pay attention here because if you just jump into a long here, 30x leverage, this very well may just roll back over, flush out those longs, come down here, commit people short, flush out the shorts. We're going to have some choppiness. I do believe so. Last week, I talked about potential choppiness that I was watching for all the way through Wednesday. So we need to pay a little bit, fairly close attention to what's going on in this market. So let's dive into some of the charts that we got to look at today because we got a guest coming on here in just a few minutes. If you are tuned in right now, we got 259 people in the house as it stands to kick the show off. So shout out to each and every one of you. Big love to you. You know, we do a giveaway every week. So make sure you come over here to my page here at Kelly Kellam or at Academy BitLab. And you can retweet any of these posts. This one right here, going live with Thinking Crypto and Kelly Kellam. Hit that retweet, hit that like button. That will enter you to win. You can also retweet the actual live itself. I will be counting both of those. We will do a double giveaway this coming Monday when we do the random drawing. And we will pick from today specifically, and we will draw another day. So you got a great chance today to win. We've given away $100 USDT. We've given away crypto. We've given away merchandise. We've given away memberships, all kind of stuff. So head over here, hit that retweet, hit that like button, show some love to the channel. And now let's dive into what we want to look at. Look at all this green, baby. Green day profits. Are you in the house? Because it is your day today because we're seeing some pumpage. Will it stay this way? We're going to talk about that and more. We see the Bitcoin total market cap is at about 2.33 trillion. I cannot wait till we look down at this We're just doing our morning stream, breaking down, and we're like, and today's market cap is 7.25 trillion. It will get there at some point. The question is, what are you doing between now and then? That's going to be the biggest difference maker in so many of your lives, and how you are actively participating in this market or taking concerted strategic positions in a basically cultivated way, doing diligence, making sure you are setting up your portfolio in a way that can mitigate risk, but also expose yourself to the right types of narratives in this market, because we've got an incredible bull run coming up. And this is what everybody's feeling like right now. This is just random coins, different, everybody's like, all right, if you're in this, everybody feels like this. Is this going to be the case? Is crypto really fully on the launching block or the chopping block from the election today? I think the question is, what is going to be the regulatory stance? That's where the impact of this election is right now, is the certainty or uncertainty about the stance of the administration coming in. Now, with that, you also have to realize, because Bitcoin was very much a part of the policy discussions, and Trump spoke at Bitcoin conference in Nashville this year in July. Does that mean he's going to have full regulatory support for everything in crypto? Maybe, maybe not. We do know that he has NFTs that they've launched. We do know that he launched an altcoin. We do know that he's spoken so positively about Bitcoin. I think Ethereum will probably be in that sort of realm as well. But meme coins aren't really a part of that discussion. On the flip side, there's a major meme coin out there that is, MAGA, that's Trump, that's Tramp. There's so many different ones. We don't really talk about meme coins that much here, but you have to realize that may be a sort of feather in the cap of the likelihood of support there. But there's still regulatory concerns, regardless of the president that gets put into office. But this is what the crypto market's waiting on right now, much like the rate cuts that we may very likely get in 2 days' time on Thursday. So everybody's wondering what's going to happen. Same thing with Kamala Harris. Well, Kamala Harris, remember, we have Bitcoin spot ETFs. Those are approved. We have Ethereum spot ETFs approved. We have other things that are on the agenda to potentially happen. And the question is going to be, what's going to happen with the SEC? Are they going to change their stance? There's still a lot of questions and concerns. It just feels like the money makers out there in this market, big players everywhere from Howard Lutnick to Bill Ackman, Bill Miller, Michael Saylor, Elon Musk. I forget there's a gentleman's name who's one of the richest men in the world that's down there in Mexico. Top, 60, 80, $100 million person who also is very positive towards Bitcoin. We got BlackRock with the highest appetite you've ever seen of any asset in the history ever that's launched an ETF, beating even gold's ETF by like almost 700 days and how fast they got to the amount of Bitcoin buying pressure that came in for it. So a lot of things are positive right now, regardless of who's in office, but there is money sort of leaning into the side of certainty of actually deploying more capital and being a lot more aggressive in this market if Trump is in office. So just from the crypto perspective, I think there's some bullishness or bearishness tied to the outcome in the very near term based on what happens today. And we'll talk more about that with our guest when he comes on here in just a few moments. But continuing on here, remember, we always interact with the stuff that we see online if it draws any engagement from us. But we did see, everybody's wondering why, we getting this pump up right here. We did see earlier today, sudden spot buying, not leverage, sudden spot buying in unison. This is on Binance, Coinbase, Bitfinex, OKX, all on the same bar. I wonder if it's all, same sort of institution or coordination of different institutions, or if, I don't know, maybe some piece of news came out. But the point is, there was a pretty big spike in spot buying, not leverage buying. This, to me, screams a bit more of a healthy push. But you got to be very mindful today of the games that are going to be played in taking liquidity in both directions. In fact, you can see this on the charts. This is a 3-day chart here. Came down, scooped this liquidity, cleared it out, scooped this liquidity. These are people that were going long. That's what this hot, brighter color areas. Let's clear out these longs. They got too hype. Let's clear out these longs. Okay, we took the liquidity. Now everybody's starting to short. Okay, boom, let's take their liquidity. Still shorting. Let's take their liquidity. Still shorting. take their liquidity. And right now, let's go ahead and take a little bit of a refresh. Look at that, scooped all the way through this liquidity. Now it's starting to get cleared up just a touch here. What does it look like on the 24-hour chart? Not much. This looks to me like there's some de-risking going on because not as many, see how hot this is? A lot of people are like trying to short, and over here, it's not much on either direction. So there's a little bit more, I think, patience coming in, I think, into today. And I told you last week, I was watching in through Wednesday for basically almost guaranteed volatility. And the question is going to be tonight, do we have a determination of who the president is or not? And I'm going to be tracking this throughout the day over here at apnews.com. You can come over here to the projections. Nothing is in yet. The last time this was updated was this minute, 11:42. So we're going to be tracking this today. None of this is going to be updated by the time this stream is over, but I'm going to be following along because, golly, I feel like we're living in the most ridiculous reality show of our time. Now, continuing on, Crypto Rover, the pre-election bear trap is almost over. This is the final Bitcoin shakeout. I'm kind of in agreement with this. Even if Kamala wins, whether you like Trump, whether you like Kamala, let's not get into the political discourse. We're talking about what are markets going to do. Even if Kamala wins, I do believe we will still have a bull market. It just might be a little bit of like, oh, it looked like most of the polls were going for Trump. Everybody's very bullish on what that would mean for Bitcoin immediately. But if Kamala wins, I think we'll get a washout, AKA an opportunity with lower prices. I don't think we're going to break down into the 30s or anything like that. Maybe in the mid 50s, something like that. But I do think regardless, we're either on the top side of this going to break out or we'll get another little leg in this zone and then have that breakout to the upside. So let's stay cognizant that the markets are in some ways self-healing in that it's all up to what sort of risk you put yourself in position of when you're engaging with this market. If you buy now along and you need it to go up tomorrow, you might get shaken out. If you buy now and realize we're looking towards somewhere in 2025 for profits, whether it's in April, whether it's in somewhere in October to November, we need to take a little bit of a calm approach in the coming days, depending on how all this information shakes out. Because remember, the number one most important thing to markets for risk on versus risk off is certainty in the market. So continuing on here, I got a couple more charts. So we got our guest coming on. I shared this yesterday, but I got to remind you, each U.S. election week has set a Bitcoin price floor, meaning it never goes below that again. That's never been revisited. This was the election 2012. This was the election 2016. This was the election 2020. We didn't come back down to this level. Things are setting up for some incredible, incredible things. And again, regardless of if you're a Trump or regardless if you're a Kamala, we are not here for division. We're looking at markets so we can change our lives. In order to do that, you have to weather the certainty and the uncertainty in a meaningful way so that you can navigate these things and not get sucked into the emotional trading. Now, I got two more charts, and I got our guest here in the wings. We're going to be bringing him on here just a second. And I'm super excited. I've been watching his content for a long time. I'm super excited to introduce him to you all. But looking here, Quentin Francois, this is fairly similar to what I'm thinking about. Bitcoin price prediction when Trump becomes president versus Kamala Harris. Okay, up. Yes, we will still get a retrace because you get some overhyped individuals. You come back, you test this confirmation with where do the bulls come in, and then you get that launch. Kamala Harris, oh, it's still up. It just is delayed a little. It's a little muted because you have to have the sort of loss of the super hope. And then you realize at the end of the day, we have more buying pressure and more bullish fundamentals than we've ever had in the history of Bitcoin specifically, but also the crypto market, with the amount of appetite and the amount of structure that we have essentially become entrenched in the global finance system. We're seeing nation states mining Bitcoin. We're seeing the most appetite we've ever seen for any ETF in the history of any asset ever, not just crypto, but any asset ever. Institutions are on the horizon. 16 billion coming back from FTX here in the matter of about a month and a half, about a month. We have the fair value accounting rules that are going live about the second week of December. We have Microsoft shareholders voting on whether or not they're going to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. We have Michael Saylor about to buy basically 42 billion, almost $40 million a day in Bitcoin. And people are worried that the president specifically is going to be the make or break. No, this is baked in because there's permanent an infinite inflation to US dollars and to all other fiat currencies. By that nature, Bitcoin is programmed by nature with its fixed supply to essentially indefinitely go up with some chop along the way. And with that, let's get to our guest, the main man of the hour, Mr. Tony Edwards, Thinking Crypto. How you doing? Welcome to the show, baby.
Kelly, thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Bitcoin is on the move today, so that's a good sign, but great to be here.
Hey, man. So I'm so happy that you're here. On a day like this, I can't just be a singular voice. We are a country of, it's supposed to be a democracy, right? And one of those things is like, I have to have a guest on the day of the election because not everybody's going to have the same view. Not everybody's going to have the same lens. So what are your thoughts today? You know, you probably heard some of what I was talking about. Does it specifically matter for the outcome of this potential bull market coming or not? Does it get canceled if Kamala wins? Is it irrelevant? Is it slightly delayed? Is it muted? What's your thoughts around that?
So first and foremost, I just want to remind U.S. citizens, go out and vote, exercise the rights you have in this democracy. That's important. Doesn't matter who you support. Now, to your question, Kelly, I believe that in the short term, a Harris win would not be too great for Bitcoin or the stock market. In the long term, it doesn't matter. If Trump wins, there's going to be some euphoria and we can see the markets really rally. But long term, they are both part of the money printing fiat regime, right, Kelly? Bitcoin is not correlated to Harris, Trump, Republicans, or Democrats. It was created as a hedge against both parties because they both debase currency. They both steal your money via inflation and all these things. And people forget the ethos of Bitcoin. It is not correlated to Trump. But as I said, there could be some euphoria because people anticipate Gensler is going to be out if Trump is elected, right? Elizabeth Warren is gone. So there's going to be some euphoria there. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin and the crypto market and even the stock market, it's all correlated to global liquidity. The more money they keep printing, the more asset prices will go up.
I you know what? It's like, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And I don't think people realize this. In some ways, it doesn't matter if it's Kamala or Trump. When you ask, is there going to be money printing? The way our system is set up right now, we're doing over $3 billion. Is it a day or it's something ridiculous in interest payments to the debt that we have? The only way you can move forward is to continue that unless you gut the system, which if everybody says that's what they want, you have to be willing to have, 13 to 20 years where things are going to be pretty rough, but it actually would be much healthier afterwards. The point is, money printing is a necessary function of how our government works if we're expecting things to continue relatively, what we can say, faux smoothly. So by that nature, it's kind of like what I say. I think Bitcoin going up is essentially baked in. It's programmed by the nature of not just fiat currency, every underlying asset that Bitcoin can be weighed against inflates. Gold, diamonds, real estate. There's not an asset out there that you could weigh Bitcoin against that doesn't inflate. So how could you be worried that this does not have a bright future?
Absolutely. And look, I want to make sure I caveat my statements by saying there are other issues people are voting for, right? There are social issues, there are certain economic issues, there's the border and so forth. Those are legitimate issues. You vote accordingly, right? But as it relates to assets and the system that we live in, it doesn't matter which Democrat or Republican comes in, you're going to see the money printer keep going burr, guys. That's how it functions, Kelly, as you mentioned, right? They keep raising the debt ceiling. That is one thing they agree on. Congress argues about a lot of things, but when it comes to getting the government going and raising that debt ceiling and printing money, that is the game. That there's no change here. And one of the things I've learned over the years is not to so much look at what the president is saying or doing as it relates to the economy. Watch what the Fed and Wall Street are doing, because that's what they are paying attention to. They know the game. They know the fiat regime game. And it wasn't until Bitcoin and crypto that my eyes were open and I got that enlightenment. And I think a lot of people would agree the same thing.
I studied anthropology at Columbia University, and in the last, I don't even know, since 2016. So almost 9 years I've been in crypto. I swear to God, If I ever have kids, I have a nephew, maybe I'll tell him this, but I'll say this to everybody that's out there. If you really want to learn something, find interest in it. Because in the last 9 years, I swear, and I have so much more to learn, and I learn so much on a daily basis. But I feel like what I've learned in the last 9 years is, in some ways, and I'm not down talking PhD people that have gone through the full process. I feel like I've gone through a PhD sort of program of, I toured the world playing music for a living. Okay. And all of a sudden now I'm talking about the yield inversion curves and bond rates and what the dollar index is doing weighed against a basket of the Japanese yen carried. It's just like, what the, and it's because I care so much about what's going on. Once I started learning about Bitcoin is what opened that doorway to be like, oh wait, what's this money printing bullshit? Mm-hmm. And while all of us think it's bad, the funny thing about it is once you really understand investments, you start going, yes, that's bad, but that's not going to stop. So I'm going to ride that wave in a way that actually can work for me. And that's the difference of investing versus not investing. If you don't invest, inflation is the worst thing in the world. Money printing is the worst thing in the world. If you're investing, all you're doing is basically taking a one-way ticket up the sort of class system. And I wish we didn't have those, but you have to navigate the systems that you're in.
Absolutely. Well put. And, one of the things people may say as a criticism is say, well, I'll just invest in real estate or I'll just invest in the stock market. But as billionaire Paul Tudor Jones has been saying, Bitcoin and crypto is the fastest horse in the race because of the hard cap supply, because it's a truly global asset class. Think about that. For the first time in history, anyone with internet connection and a smartphone can tap into the Bitcoin network. They can buy a fraction, and a billionaire can buy 500,000 Bitcoin, right? But a person in Australia or some country in Africa can buy a piece of Bitcoin. There's never been anything like that. And remember, it's real time, it's verifiable, it is happening right before your eyes. Now, some people may say, hey, what about gold? Well, gold's not on the blockchain. I don't know how much supply is in this central bank and that central bank. I have to take their word for it, right? But can I trust them? No, right? And they're continuing to mine mine gold. So Bitcoin and crypto has really changed the game. And that is why it's a more lucrative investment. Don't get me wrong. I'm diversified. I have a real estate investment property. I have some stocks. I'm invested in the NASDAQ because tech has been moving, but nothing moves like Bitcoin and crypto. And to your point of trying to outpace debasement and inflation, you can't keep your money under the mattress or in the bank account. Don't get me wrong, you need operating cash, pay your bills and so forth, but majority of your net worth should be in assets because that's the only way you're going to win.
Well, it's as a kind of an interesting analogy. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen, but I've got this ring. This ring is a $1 silver dollar from 1921, and it's actually the coin. Well, the coin itself is worth about $50. I bought this, I think, for $150 at this festival. And the reason why I think that is, I'm not talking about the money here. I'm talking about the difference is the coin can be worth something. Now, because it was rare, it was a 1921 Anna Morgan silver dollar, that made it more rare. And then the fact then a craftsman made something unique out of it, the value was higher. And I think the number one thing that people don't understand, everyone that's here watching right now, I know you all get Bitcoin. That's why you're here. But it's important to listen to these types of conversations because every one of us needs to be able to have this discourse in a meaningful way with everybody else around them, because you're either pushing them further away from adopting the Bitcoin standard or you're planting a seed that they can get here sooner. And the faster this tide rises, it raises all ships. So the point being, people talk about Bitcoin as being gold. It's not. People talk about it being a commodity. It's not. They talk about it being information, computer structure system. It's not. It's all those things and more. So the fact that there's the broad range of utilities that ever keep increasing, the fact that you can make people's power and energy cheaper because you can use more of the energy because, was it 30-40% of energy that's created annually is wasted anyway? Why not put a Bitcoin miner on there? Now all the energy is making money. Now you can charge everybody less money because the margin is a lot wider. And in fact, the use cases is so incredible to me that it blows my mind that there's anybody out there like Elizabeth Warren is a case in point that could give such pushback. The only thing that I can lean into there is you can't be this stupid. There's got to be an ulterior motive that you're either bought and paid for by banks or I mean, maybe you. I'm not even gonna say other things. I'll get canceled. But yeah, so okay, we're talking Bitcoin, but of course, one of the things that's kind of, I don't want to say on the agenda, but maybe it's on the agenda because it hadn't really been spoken about. We have the Bitcoin spot ETFs that give some regulatory clarity. We have Ethereum spot ETF that just got approved recently. But I feel like in some ways, is there a difference with what happens with altcoins this cycle if Trump gets elected versus Kamala Harris?
I absolutely believe so, because here's why. And for the Kamala Harris supporters, you got to accept the facts around this. She has not come out with a clear crypto policy. We've heard little breadcrumbs from her campaign and so forth, but there's nothing clear. There's nothing listed as, I'm going to change the SEC rules. I'm going to help Congress to get legislation passed. While Donald Trump and the Republicans have made that very clear what they want to do with Bitcoin as a reserve asset. Donald Trump clearly saying he would fire Gensler on day one. Right, we've got a lot of concrete statements and an agenda of what his campaign would do if he was to win. So if Donald Trump comes in, I absolutely believe that crypto legislation will be on the fast track. We will get it sooner than later, and that will bring clarity for altcoins, because that's the big thing in question, right? Solana, the Solana ETFs is in play. XRP ETFs is in play. Grayscale has a basket ETF that they're trying to get. So until a new SEC chair comes in and maybe drops these lawsuits, and works with Congress to get legislation through, it's going to be very tough for Solana and these other altcoins to move and to get their day in the light here with the ETFs. But with Kamala Harris, the jury's out. We don't know. It could be 50-50. She could continue the same regime here with Warren and Gary Gensler, or maybe she does make a change, but it's hard to tell. And unfortunately, she didn't do a good job in putting that information forward. And the problem, and it's what you were alluding to before, Elizabeth Warren. She has a ton of power. Biden made the deal with her for her to oversee the financial markets. And it was for her to drop out of the primary so Biden could continue doing his thing. I've spoken to people in D.C. She has her Elizabeth Warren has her people positioned in the SEC, the FDIC, you name it. They're everywhere. And that's why you've been seeing all of these different agencies pushing back against crypto. Obviously, the biggest one being the SEC.
So I got a weird question for you. Why? And I know that there's some key names and figures and money people in play. Why is Solana taking the lead as on the discussions of the next ETF? How is Chainlink not in that discussion? It seems to me like Chainlink, outside of, even more so than Ethereum, seems like to me Chainlink is probably among the most important cryptos out there, just by nature. I don't mean by bias. I mean by nature of how overwhelmingly integrated it is with not only the majority of crypto projects, but also with legacy Web2 at Swift banks. It's encompassing almost the entire global finance, as well as real world asset tokenization, as well as kind of looking like it's leaning into having some integrations or partnerships or support from BlackRock as well. Why is that not? Is there a bit of a suppressive thing there because they don't want it to have an ETF? Why would that not be the next thing for essentially that's just an institutional access channel to get it? Why would they not be propping that up?
Great question. This is something I've gone through the journey of trying to learn as much as possible. And here's what I've discovered. Look, I'm bullish on Chainlink, so I want to make sure I disclose that. I've been holding it since 2020. I made some decent returns back in 2020. It was the Solana of 2020. It was leading the market. There was a lot of liquidity coming in. The reason being, you have some of these coins where VCs really latch onto, and then they start entering, taking positions, and they enter or push in a lot of liquidity. So that's what's happening with Solana. You have these semi-chosen coins that are pushed by the VCs. There's a lot of marketing, a lot of liquidity. So that's what's happening with Solana here. And if you look at the holdings, a lot of VCs are behind it. A lot of them were underwater after the FTX situation. So that's what's taking place. That doesn't mean Chainlink won't move, but unfortunately, it's going to have to wait for the massive liquidity that's going to flow from Bitcoin, right? As Bitcoin hits new all-time highs. And I wish that wasn't the case, right, Kelly? Because I hold Chainlink. Don't get me wrong. I have some Solana, but I'm bullish on Chainlink because what you're seeing, I'm seeing the adoption, the oracles, and other blockchains plugging into Chainlink's price feeds and so forth. So I wish it was reversed, but unfortunately, this is how the big players, whales, and so forth operate in the market.
Yeah, we're going to have to do this more often because I'm already loving talking to you, but there's so much more to get into. Obviously, one of the major narratives that has kind of popped up in its own sort of little cycle this last year was AI, and somewhat very tied to, I don't want it to necessarily be super tied to NVIDIA, but in some ways it is. But you're also seeing Render making strides with partnerships with Apple, as well as some of the stuff, where you can see over the history of NVIDIA, some involvement with Render participating and helping develop some of the things that they were doing as well. Do you feel like the AI narrative got a pump and may lag for a while now, maybe until, I forget what it's called, whatever the summit happens in February or March for AI, or is this going to be something that is kind of a melt up thing that isn't potentially in a bubble, like people were comparing NVIDIA to Cisco and so on and so forth? Or is this like something like, no, we're just getting started, pile in Render, Tau, Fetch, like ASI, like how are you looking at this AI narrative, this bull cycle?
So the AI narrative has been very strong. A lot of liquidity came in there, and I thankfully, and I don't get it all. I don't always get it right, but I took a bet on Render and Fetch, and those worked out really well for me. I made some money. I remember being up like 600% on Fetch, and I took profits and so forth. But then I bought back in using some of the profits. So I'm betting that the AI narrative will continue. I think it is one of those things that is not specific to just crypto, but the stock market and even the overall economy. There's so much dialogue. There's so much talk about what AI is going to do, the future of it. So it has the mass psychology penetration, if that makes sense, right? You walk down the street, you ask somebody about AI, they're like, oh yeah, I feel this about it, right? I'm scared about it, or I think it's cool. So it has that type of penetration. So when you have that strong narrative, it opens up the door for a lot of liquidity, whether people are investing directly or they're going through an investment advisor. So it is pretty big. And I think that trickles into the crypto market. And then people have seen the moves that took place in 2023 into early 2024 for some of these tokens. I think it continues. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it continues. I think it's such a mass psychology narrative. And people see that, oh, this is going to be the future. It's going to be a big part of the economy, that it will bring in a lot of liquidity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And then I question everybody asks every cycle so far, is Cardano dead?
So here's the thing, right? It's so funny. I had to go through this journey of learning the market cycles and understand the liquidity flow. As I said before, VCs sometimes pick some of these winners, like Solana. And the last cycle, it was Chainlink initially, and it's going to be some of the AI tokens in this cycle. That doesn't mean that some of these blue chip altcoins like Cardano or XRP or AVAX or whatever are not going to run. They will, but they will probably be laggards because the liquidity is going to Solana and these tokens. But when we hit that euphoric phase, and then retail is pouring in liquidity and everybody's trying to buy up, right? And Bitcoin is at maybe 120, 130K. That liquidity will start flowing out, and you're going to start to see them move. And I say that being here for multiple bull and bear market cycles. I remember, and there may not be people who hold XRP or hate XRP. That's fine. That's not the point. The point is what we've seen the markets do. I remember in 2017, XRP didn't move. It was such a laggard, but then it skyrocketed towards the end of the bull market. And ADA in the previous bull market also did something similar, where it didn't have too much momentum, but then it picked up and hit $3. So this is where there's no guarantees, but we haven't hit that full euphoric phase where the liquidity will come in and help these blue chips.
Yeah, I hear that. And I was talking with Quentin Francois about a week or two ago here on the stream. And I think it's just like politics. Crypto's the same thing. There's bubbles everywhere. And I just thought it was interesting. I was sitting here looking at the coin market cap rankings one day, and for whatever, like we do every day, and I remember I was just looking at BNB. I was like, man, BNB, $81 billion. And I don't see, and I'm not hating on it at all. I think BNB is going to do fine. But in my bubble, I had to reach out. I asked Quentin because he lives in Brussels and he goes back and forth from Dubai. I said, I don't see almost anybody ever on any crypto YouTube, any analysts, almost nobody post about BNB. And he's in his bubble, he laughed. He goes, yeah, I don't see anybody ever talking about BNB. So is that just kind of like institutional VC, big player sort of money that's keeping that involved because it's such a large liquidity provider, it's such a large, the largest exchange globally? What is that? And if the retail's not really involved, does that have any sort of amplifying effect if they do sort of catch wind of really, finding a narrative there? Like, where do you see BNB going this cycle?
Yeah, BNB, one could argue, is an outlier, kind of an anomaly, right? To your point, Binance is the largest crypto exchange. So there's a ton of visibility around this token. And of course, if you go on the Binance app or platform, you're going to see BNB in your face. So what we may be seeing, while it's not happening in the United States, where to your point, there's not this narrative, oh, grab BNB and it's going to go to the moon and so forth. I think outside of the US, there's a strong narrative for it because Binance has this dominant presence in many of these countries as the largest exchange. And look, over the years, I remember CZ tweeting out about burning supply. They've done a good job in keeping the supply at a good point where it kept it in the top 10, if that makes sense, by market capitalization. So it's a tricky one. I had made some money off of BNB in the last bull market cycle, not much, but this cycle I'm not holding on to any because I wasn't sure what was going to happen with Binance and the lawsuit and so forth. But it's still there, I think, because of its token supply and because of Binance's brand and the usage as the top exchange. And I honestly, I think it'll ride the liquidity flow. It may go up to $800, 1,000. I'm not sure. But if you're holding it, God bless. But I don't have any. So
Yeah, I hear that. It kind of brings to a good point to discuss. For anybody that's new out there, maybe you're not new, but you're not super active and you're always trying to figure out how to refine. And that is, how do you cut through the noise? And the noise, I'm not even talking about all the different posts and stuff. I'm saying because I find myself, I've been in this for 9 years. I find myself doing this. Somebody will bring up a coin and I'm like, fuck, man, I need to get that coin. Because in every day you could do that. So at some point you got to figure out what you want, what the total amount you have to allocate, whether it's $100 or 100 million. You still have to figure out how you're budgeting. I kind of equate it to, did you ever play Sims when you were a kid in the 90s?
yeah.
And this was one of the most informative games ever because you had to pick the character traits, right? Just like any role-playing game where, strength, mana, there's all this stuff. But then also the way you set up your house, all these different, and the lifestyle affects the quality of life for that character. And similar with crypto, you have to figure out how much can I allocate? And if I put more here, there's less there. Okay, so how much risk do I want? How much reward do I want? And you have to kind of find that line. But you also don't want to have $1,000 in the market and you have 77 coins that you're tracking that. How do you cut through the noise to say, okay, this is my allocation and yes, I want that. How do you, what's your navigation strategy there?
Yeah, this is a tough one. And I, as similar to you, had to go through the journey of learning this and balancing my portfolio, not to spread myself too thin. I remember doing that, I think it was 2017. And then I was kicking myself after, like, damn, I should have put more into ETH, right? And things like that. And what I've done, I have a top 20, essentially. And look, not everyone can probably do a top 20. It just depends on how much dry powder you have. And what I've learned is that there's a risk curve. So Bitcoin being the largest brand, the number one, where a lot of people recognize Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. Now, altcoin number 1,000, they may not know what the hell that is. So I put a good amount of my money in Bitcoin. It becomes that foundation. So regardless of what happens in altcoins, I know I'm going to walk away from the market with profit. And you have to set your expectations and control your emotions here because everybody wants to be a millionaire. Everybody wants the most gains. That's not always possible. What is highly probable is that you can walk away with some profits. And that's the important thing. You want to make money, not lose money. So I put a good amount into Bitcoin, and then I take the, let's say 50-50, and then I take the 50% of my dry powder and I put it into altcoins. And I'll go down the top 10 of the market cap, and I'll go out more on the risk curve by, for example, investing in FET and Render, because I recognize that is a narrative. And then putting some in Solana because I recognize the VCs are behind Solana, pushing it heavily. So this is where you have to control your emotions and don't go in saying, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire at the end of the cycle. No, you may, but you don't want to set yourself up so with these unreal expectations that you go into the more riskier altcoins, which could not perform, or you get rugged.
And you don't, and you also, you fail to take profits because you're like, you might be at 600,000 in your portfolio. And this is my signal. When I take a screenshot of my portfolio, it's happened 2 cycles now. Within 3 days, market's tanking. I'm like, that was a signal, bro. When you're like, yo, it doesn't need to get, if you're the million mark goal. Well, if you're ignoring bearish divergences and negative capital flow and, you know, where you're at on a timeline of the site. Yeah. I mean, it's such good for, I cut you off. Continue on.
No, yeah, that's a great point. And to your point of screenshot, I've done that too. And you got to ladder out, man. You got to discipline yourself. One of the things I did last cycle, which helped me, and I'm doing this cycle as well, I have a Google spreadsheet. Where am I taking profits? And now these are not just random numbers. Oh yeah, Bitcoin 200,000. No, I'm looking at the Fibonacci. I'm looking at the Elliott wave. And while no one can exactly call the top, you can get an approximation. So I know that, okay, at 100K on my chart here on my spreadsheet, I'm taking profits. At 110, I'm taking profits again. 120, I'm taking profits again. So I'm laddering out because I've been in the market where I felt that euphoric feeling, and it won't stop. It will keep going, Kelly. It's going to go to $1 million this cycle, right? We've all been there, but you got to check your emotions at the door. And the emotional roller coaster is the big challenge for many people. But when you actually look at the numbers, how much am I walking away from this cycle, in profit? And you say, hey, I'm walking away with money. You got to take it. You got to take the profits and walk away. And guess what? This market is still nascent, where you can reinvest some of those profits in the bloody bear market and then grow the pot, if that makes sense. So you really got to have a plan. You got to write it down.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think one of the things I think it's on a lot of people's mind, whether they want to admit it or not, is even if every one of you is 100% only in crypto, we all are aware, by being on social media, you can't not be aware now of what's going on. Even just, let's say, in the U.S. Economic sort of position we're in. On the one hand, we're seeing the S&P 500 and NASDAQ and the markets were making new highs, and Bitcoin was trading a bit flat, and then it pushed higher. And now this is actually pushing up while the S&P is pulling down. Is there a world this cycle? Do you think that we're in any sort of, or is this just a crapshoot? Who knows? Is there a world this cycle where the S&P 500 sort of tops out here, maybe starts trading to the downside, and Bitcoin starts to basically truly act as that hedge, not, basically inverse to what risk is? Or is there a likelihood, because some people are saying, remember, we're about to get potential rate cuts in 2 days at the FOMC meeting. And there's always a split argument of, well, rate cuts, everybody's like, that means the market's going to moon. And other people are like, well, it's about 65% of the time when that happens, something's broken and the market actually has a big recession afterwards. So how do we navigate this where we're in a position that does feel like, and it's bias, it does feel like we're post-halving about 195 days. We got the global liquidity that's supposed to start ticking up. We got China about $1.4 trillion, I think, starting November 8th, that's supposed to start filtering in. We might start getting some stealth quantitative easing. We have all the stuff we talked about with FTX, with Microsoft, shareholders voting. Everything feels so bullish. Is it too anticipated of a bull run that could we not get that this cycle?
That's a great point. And if one thing I've learned is that if the herd believes a narrative, usually the opposite happens, right? It's not 100%, but I would say 95% of the time that happens when everyone is expecting us to go to new heights. The thing how you can balance that out, to answer your question, is by looking at the technicals and the charts, right? And as far as Elliott wave, like I still think there's a fifth wave here for Bitcoin. Now that's not a guarantee. That's not a certainty. Anything could happen. A black swan event could happen and cancel this whole thing, right? But if everything goes to according to plan and how it's played out historically, I think there's still upside here for the stock market as well as Bitcoin. Now, one could say the stock market is heavily overextended and there could be a rotation of liquidity. To your point, stock market pulls back a bit, Bitcoin starts moving, right? It's kind of what we're seeing with gold, right? Bitcoin did a massive run up at the beginning of 2024 with all the ETF buying. It put us ahead of schedule, and it never hit an all-time high before the halving. So that was different. But then all of a sudden, come later in the year, gold is ripping. So I think there's some cycling of liquidity here. And we could see, to your point, stock market pull back a bit, Bitcoin rips. However, from a deviation standpoint, I don't think we're going to see a deviation, with Bitcoin and the stock market and some of these other assets until Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset. If Donald Trump and Cynthia Lummis's proposal to make Bitcoin a U.S. Treasury reserve asset becomes a real thing, then I think you may start to see some deviation. That's a game changer. That is, central banks are going to start to hoard Bitcoin now. Wall Street is hoarding it right now, but when the central banks are hoarding it as a reserve asset, like they do gold, I think you will see some deviation. Bitcoin may do something different. Until then, I just watch it follow the stock market and global liquidity.
Well, then the other kicker there is we've seen massive evolution in BRICS. And there's sort of an ongoing discussion. That's some of the argument for why gold is pushing higher too right now, because there's been nations just buying tons on a daily basis, tons and tons of gold. And that's partially because of, sort of reserve for what's happening with BRICS and a little bit of the I don't want to say destabilization, but loss of efficacy of the US dollar in global trade, especially after we weaponized the dollar when we sanctioned Russia, which regardless of what you think about Russia and what they did or right or wrong, the worst thing that we could have done as a government was undermine the dollar being truly valuable, which means to not be weaponized. If you're holding it, it's yours. And that's what Bitcoin is. When you hold it, it's yours. And so now we're seeing this rotation and this, I don't want to call it fervor, but this sort of growing resolve around BRICS and the hundreds of countries that are starting to align there. If Bitcoin, which has been speculated, is one of the mechanisms or one of the means of trade in BRICS organizations, we may, before that happens, start seeing also the same thing we're seeing with gold, which is starting to see a stockpiling of basically creating those Bitcoin reserves from 194 countries. I mean, what would that do to the price? And could that be on the agenda in this cycle, or is that, potentially a cycle or two out if that were to even happen?
I think that's a cycle or two out. I think the narratives and the idea is being planted right now. Really surprised me when Trump brought that up and Senator Cynthia Lummis. And I'm like, wait a minute, that really caught my attention because that was out of left field. No one expected that. And I think sometimes these things do take cycles, especially when you have governments involved. They do tend to move slow. So while the idea and a draft of the bill may be introduced, it's probably not going to pass now, but watch maybe towards 2030, the next having as inflation continues to get bad and they have to keep printing money, and more of Wall Street and more of the institutions around the world recognize, oh shit, we need an actual hard money here because the US dollar, the world reserve currency, is getting debased. So we need to move towards that. And then I think you have a true Bitcoin standard. I think it's going to be hyper Bitcoinization, as people have been talking about for a long time. But I think you needed certain factors. You needed Wall Street and ETF. You needed presidential Congress folks to come out and say, we gotta diversify into Bitcoin. So when you have the powerhouses, the pillars of society and governments and so forth, doing this, it makes it easy. And I think it's going to come by 2030, in my opinion.
So, Tony, I got to say it, guys, I'm sorry. What in the fuck is going on with Ethereum? Is this setting up to be the dark horse that everybody's not paying attention to? And it's going to just melt people's faces because they ignored it and they think it's only the shiny new thing, Solana, Sui, just name them. or is this actually going? Is this? I don't want to say losing the race. Is this going to be not the investable sort of focus this cycle? And this, just so you know, I'm not sure if you could see it on your end, but this is the
Yep.
ETH to Bitcoin chart breaking below a multi-year lows here. And it's already broken below this trend line here. If you look at this trend line goes back all the way to 2016. And we've broken through that and confirmed the breakdown and are only bleeding further. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, look, I think Ethereum is going to run. I think ETH to 10K, 11K is not out of the question. However, from a percentage gain standpoint, and what will give you the most bang for your buck, Solana, obviously, because you look at the Sol ETH chart as well, ETH is bleeding against Solana. So I think Solana is going to outperform ETH, but that does not mean that ETH is not going to make you money. I think ETH has a strong case of going to 10, 11K. And that, look, I've been holding ETH for a long time. I bought ETH below 1,000, even at $500 and so forth, some of which I have not sold. And just to add clarity, there's some Bitcoin in ETH I am never selling. I'm just leaving it there because of my entry point, and I'll give it to my daughter, right? But when I'm playing the cycles and I'm looking to make a return, am I allocating more money this cycle to Solana? Yes. Do I still have money in ETH? Yes. So it may not run as strong as Solana and certain other alts, but I think it's just bleeding right now because more liquidity is going to run into Bitcoin as it heads to the fifth wave. And then that liquidity will flow down back to ETH. So I think it does make some moves, but not as great as it did in the previous cycles.
I mean, to your point, again, this is the ETH to Bitcoin chart. And if you look at the Sol to Bitcoin chart, it's actually astounding because it's in a massive bull flag, just strength coming into it and just waiting for that next move. And this, even if you take the sort of mitigated conservative approach, the push out of this, if we do break bullishly, is that's about 81%. If you do it as a bull flag, then I think it's roughly about 300%. Yeah, about 300%. So either way, this is looking super strong. So I know we're coming up on time here in just a couple minutes. So I want to appreciate you coming on, but I got to twist your leg here a little bit. I know we've talked about quite a wide variety of different topics and assets and all this. And so I really appreciate all your insights. But do you have any sort of particular niches that you think are underperforming now, or may just excessively overperform in a way people you don't think are prepared for? And do you have a gem or two that you could share with the audience? Let's go, baby.
Yeah. So here's the thing. AI, I think, has been my big outlier bet for this cycle, aside from the blue chips like Cardano and XRP and all these things, right? Memes continue to prove me wrong. I don't hold any meme coins. And, do I wish I got some Bonk and Pepe and so forth? Sure. But you can't get everything. But this meme coin craze, continues to prove people wrong. And I think there's a lot of VCs pushing memes. From the people I've been interviewing and talking to, they've told me, yeah, there's hedge funds who have allocated a ton of money to meme coins. Man, I'm still betting big on FET, and which is now ASI. So I have that. I've been putting a bit more money into it, given that you had these three coins, AI coins, converge, and I think that's going to bring a lot of liquidity. So I'm betting big on ASI, which used to be FET, and Singularity, and I forgot the other one.
Ocean.
So yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. And so I'm surprised you didn't say Tau. Are you not a fan of Tau, or is it just go back to that discussion we had earlier where you got to pick only a certain number of horses?
Yeah, exactly. I wish I could grab Tau near, but I only have so much cash. So
yeah, I mean, Tau in my altcoin portfolio, Tau, Near, and Chainlink are my three biggest. And then Ondo, I didn't make the allocation this way. Ondo kind of became one of my largest allocations too, because I got in before the run. And typically, I will say this is not financial advice. Typically, I would have rotated some profits out of this into other stuff. But because of the kind of fairly decently tight ties that it has with BlackRock. I think this has a long way to go. So I just kind of, just from my experience, I was like, I think this is, I don't want to say a safe bet, but I felt comfortable just leaving it as it was and letting it run as it goes. Are you focusing on Ondo at all, or is it just another one of those limited horses to bet on?
No, so I've paid attention to this one, and a lot of people have been telling me about it. And to your point of the connection with BlackRock, that does give it a narrative, a strong narrative, right? Look, there's a variety of factors that drive prices. Obviously, the technicals, the tokenomics, narratives. So those things, you got to look at all those things together, look at the full picture. But this is one maybe I'll take a position on. But right now, I just been doubling down on ASI. But this is, if I had more money, I would.
Well, I hear that. Well, Tony, it's been absolutely wonderful having you here today. I don't want to hold you up all afternoon. If you have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to just leave the audience with, I'll pull up your page as you're talking too, so they can make sure and I want to encourage every single one of you, go and follow Tony here at Thinking Crypto. He's got a book out as well as his own YouTube channel, and they're putting out content on a daily basis, and it's some of the best, most unbiased, just real discourse. And I want to push you guys towards people like this, because this is how you get ahead, not somebody just trying to push the next meme token. How do you think about markets? What's your operating system? So I'll let you close it out there, and then we can move it on.
Thank you, Kelly. So I would reiterate that have a plan. One of the things I've learned, have a plan, know what tokens I'm holding, keep up with the charts and where things are trending, have the price points that you're going to take profits at, and stick to your plan, unless there's a black swan event, right? Which no one can predict. But if everything goes according to plan, guys, stick to your plan, take your profits, and don't get too greedy, because the market does not go up forever. There will be a top and there will be a bear market. There will be a bear market coming. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, I know that. But when it gets euphoric, when you get into the frenzy and you see these $10,000 God candles and so forth, and Elon's back again and whoever else, right? Michael Dell is saying, hey, we're adding Bitcoin to our balance sheet. It's going to get euphoric again. The money printer is going to keep going. Have a plan, take your profits, and then think about, hey, am I going to spend all these profits? Or am I going to eliminate debt out of my life to give me financial freedom? Am I going to reinvest it, in the bloody bear market so I can continue to grow my net worth? Think about these things. It's so important.
I couldn't agree more. And again, Tony, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, ding the bell. And just a last shout out before we go, do remember, we do the giveaway every week. So all of you that are tuned in, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter, on that tweet, whether it's the one that Tony retweeted or the actual live itself, hit that retweet, hit that like button. We will randomly draw from today and from another day this week. So you got a high chance if you're doing this one from today. And we got the links down there if you want to dive into any of our partners. Again, Tony, thank you so much for being here. Remember, everybody, doesn't matter who wins today. You still got to communicate and be love and empowerment with all the people in your world. Let's stay positive. It's going to be an exciting day. Watch out for the FOMC meeting. That's all we got. Everybody head over to Blockchain Basement. Again, thank you so much, Tony. That's all we got. Adios,
Thanks,
muchachos.
everybody.